right, thank you very much, Oyeyemi Ajayi, for that background report. And to discuss this topic, we have our guests here in Abuja studio. First, let me make welcome Reverend John Joseph Hayab, Country Director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria. It's a pleasure to welcome you, sir, to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, and happy Easter to all of us.
Okay, we have also been joined here in the studio by a familiar face, Reverend Tom Tapatore, Senior Pastor, First Baptist Church here in Area 11, Garki, Abuja. A pleasure to welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
Jumai.
Good morning. And also joining us from our Kaduna studio is Dr. Saleh Momole, Vice Chairman, Kaduna State Peace Commission. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Morning and good morning, Nigerians.
Face. And also joining us via Zoom, we have Most Reverend Habila Dabo, Bishop of Zaria Catholic Diocese.
Thank you very much, and happy Easter to all of you.
Right, let's kickstart this conversation, staying with you, Bishop Dabo. Give us a background as to the significance of Easter. What does Easter really mean? And how can you link Easter to every human being as far as the society is concerned and the way of life?
As for the Christian religion, Easter is a period that we celebrate the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ. We know that Easter is a time that we try our best out Jesus Christ, who died on Good Friday and resurrected on Easter Sunday. So the significance of Easter to all of us is that no matter how the past has been, there will always be a better tomorrow. Because on Good Friday, it was like all hope was dashed. But on Easter Sunday, Jesus resurrected, and that brought a lot of hope to humanity. So, like for us in Nigeria, we can now think that given the economic hardship, the political uncertainties, we may think that all is lost. No. There is always a tomorrow. And in our own case, the tomorrow we are anticipating is a better one. A tomorrow that will make every Nigerian to be happy. A tomorrow that will make us to understand that all the resources in Nigeria are to be equally shared. A tomorrow that will make us to go to sleep knowing that we are secured, to know that we are a happy nation. So Easter gives us that hope. And I will encourage all Nigerians not to lose hope. Despite the uncertainties, we need to realize that we have a better tomorrow.
You know, there will always be a better tomorrow, and in all his messages, we notice the humility, you know, and in his teachings and his actions and his way of life, Jesus Christ. And now, can you please tell us in your own words how we can emulate Jesus Christ in our everyday life? Because it's a known fact that he was a man of peace. He preached peace in all his messages, even in parables, which most people couldn't understand, but you could detect the presence of peace in everything he says, his actions, his lifestyle, his everything. So can you please tell us, you know, how important it is for us to follow him in the way he lived his life?
Jesus Christ was a man of peace, and he preached peace to all and sundry. And I think that this is very important to Nigerians, that we are taking up and learning from a man who preached and lived peace. He said, when they strike you on one cheek, you turn the other. It's not foolishness. No, but it is to accommodate the other person, to make the other person realize the need to live in peace. And I think we need this seriously in Nigeria, that we do not think a certain group has a monopoly of violence. No. By nature, we are all given the spirit to know how to live. Should be an example to all of us in Nigeria. And that should help us to realize that living in peace with each other is just what we need. Because as Jesus preached peace, if I accommodate you, you should accommodate me as well. If I give you, you should also give me. And so to live in peace is very important, because there can never be any meaningful development in our land without peace. When we have peace, then we can see a lot of changes will happen in our nation. And I want to say this especially to our national leaders, that we find this peace. And this peace built, our policies should exemplify peace. Our rules, our regulations, the whole system should exemplify peace, so that even when you are coming into Nigeria, you will say, yes, you are going to a land of peace. The investors that will have any intention of coming to Nigeria, they will know they are not going to be a chaotic land. They will know they are going to make their investment in a peaceful land, and their investment will bring out a lot of dividends. So the peace of Christ is a peace that we should imbibe, no matter the religion one professes. Peace is something.
The Most Reverend Habila Dabo, we want to thank you very much for your opening remarks and very clear messages there. But let's come back here to the studio. Let me engage Reverend Tom Takpatore and ask, what are the lessons of Easter and how can they be applied to our national life? Of course, the Bishop has laid a little background to that.
Easter tells us the story of Jesus, who came to live and suffer and die, not for himself. He didn't need to, but for humanity, that man may receive salvation. And this is a great lesson for us. When you live for yourself, you lose so much. The Lord Jesus Christ will teach, unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it is useless. But when it dies, it produces fruit. So when we live for ourselves, we limit our lives. God didn't create us to live for ourselves. God created us for the good of humanity, for the good of our fellow brothers and sisters. And so in Jesus going to the cross, he went to the cross to make life better for us. He went to the cross to cause a bridge in our relationship with God and in our relationship with man, the division, the chasm that had been caused by our sins, by our wickedness. Jesus came to bridge that gap. And so for us as individuals, if we follow Christ, to bridge the gap, of course, gap between God and man, but then gap between ourselves. And for us as a nation, God expects us to be one. You know, Jesus will say that a house divided against itself cannot stand. If we keep killing, keep destroying each other, we'll lose so much. Nigeria is a country that's been so endowed by God, endowed with resources, natural human resources. We have some of the best brains in the world in Nigeria. But as long as we are fighting each other, as long as we are pursuing our selfish interests, we cannot bring out the best in this nation. And so the call for us as we celebrate Easter is that we should drop all forms of selfishness and focus on the good of the nation, the good of one another.
Thank you so much for your opening comments there. Let's now bring in Reverend John Joseph Hayape, the Country Director, Global Peace Foundation of Nigeria. And let's look at the mystery of Easter. There's a lot of mystery surrounding it, the crucifixion, the resurrection. And how does the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ translate to salvation for the whole of humanity here?
Thank you very much for this beautiful question. Let me begin by saying that at Easter, we saw God breaking the walls and barriers of prejudices, breaking the walls and barriers of identity that we use to divide ourselves, and uniting humanity. And you can't explain this without reading John 3:16. The Bible says, for God so loved the world. Not that for God so loved Christians, for God so loved Northerners, or God so loved Southerners, or God so loved white men. No. For God so loved the world. And what did he do? He gave his only begotten son who died. And that's the reason for Easter. So at Easter, we see God say, hey, humanity, you are one. At Global Peace, we preach that human beings are one family under God, irrespective of our religious identity, tribal identity, whatever. So that's what we see at Easter. Easter also brings humanity close to God by teaching humanity forgiveness. God forgiving man and man forgiving one another. In church yesterday, one of the prayers we said was the Lord's Prayer. And anytime I come to this part of the Lord's Prayer, it touches my heart that forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Simply put, the mystery behind Easter is God uniting humanity, God bringing humanity close to him, God showing humanity the secret of love, forgiveness, sacrifice. Because there are three essential things at Easter. At Easter, we learn resurrection, which is the mystery and the power of God. At Easter, we learn how Jesus incarnated as from God to man. At Easter, we learn the mystery of salvation, that he delivers man. Instead of man being condemned, man is now being renewed. And that's why I like the topic national unity. And I like the conversation surrounding hope. Now look, at Easter, we learn every time that God can do anything and everything to bring man back to himself. So all hope is not lost. And at Easter, we have this other hope, that is hope for eternity. Because since Jesus Christ died and resurrected, it is clear that even when we die, we too will one day be with him forever and ever and ever. So the mystery behind Easter is the love of God for humanity, God making himself man to live among human and teaching human how to relate with one another. Let me say this and stop. There's one thing I like about in the scripture that I always want. The Bible says when you say you love God, that's in 1 John 4:20, but hate your fellow human being, you are a liar. The truth is not in you. You cannot love God until you love the people God has created. So at Easter, God is teaching us that, look, I do not send my son to die for you alone, or for your tribe alone, or for those you think you love. Even for your enemies, my son died for them. So at Easter, we see God helping humanity to learn the secret of togetherness and having hope for tomorrow.
All right, Reverend John Joseph Hayape, thank you very much for those opening comments. Let's now head to Kaduna, our Kaduna studio, where we have Dr. Saleh Momale, who has been waiting. Dr. Momale, we thank you very much for your patience, and I know you've had the privilege of listening to all the other guests on the program who have laid the foundation to what Easter talks about. Now, you give us a sense, based on what you have heard, based on what you know about Easter, how in the spirit of the season, we can use the spirit of the season to reawaken our national consciousness, to reawaken a peaceful national life, which will then be a foundation for us to do exploits in every aspect of our lives.
Thank you very much for bringing this topical issue at this season of the year when the Christian community all over the world sits and reflects over the life and death of Jesus Christ. And as we all know, Jesus Christ is also strongly recognized in the Islamic faith as Prophet Isa, alayhi salam, and he is one of the revered prophets of God. His lessons and teachings have also been incorporated in many verses of the Holy Quran, and the Muslims also respect him as one of the most revered prophets of God. And this in itself is a significant unifying factor, showing that both the Islamic and the Christian faiths have a lot in common. So I will start by congratulating our Christian community here in Nigeria and across the world for celebrating this important period in our belief and in our faiths. And we do hope that these important messages and contents of the teachings of Jesus Christ, as contained in the Bible and as contained in the Quran, will be important unifying factors that will help us achieve the most desired peace, stability, and progressive national development that we all wish to have. I have listened very keenly to the clerics you have assembled here this morning on our national network platform, the NTA, to pass some of the most important messages I have heard. And let me also acknowledge that I have benefited immensely from the various quotations they made from the Holy Bible, which are important messages for the people of Nigeria. I have also followed keenly the various messages from our political leadership at various levels, the messages to the people of Nigeria from the various clergy and religious organizations here in Kaduna State and across the country. And I must say that we are highly elated. We feel honored. We are strongly feeling that we have a clergy, we have a segment of religious leaders across the Islamic and Christian faith that are committed to entrenching the values, the practice, and the acceptance of unity, tolerance, cooperation across the various faiths that we have in this country. We have over 1 million Christians in Nigeria and certainly over 1 million Muslims in this country, which means that the unity and cooperation between these two adherents of the two religions is the basic foundation for our unity and progress. For this reason, we will continue to appeal to our religious leaders across boards. We'll continue to appeal to our political leadership across boards, and we'll continue to appeal to our intelligentsia as well as the media institutions to put forward national unity, national cohesion, cooperation, understanding as the bedrock of all their activities, all their programs. In the words of Reverend Dabo, Most Reverend Dabo, who said it just now, it is a solemn call for all of us. Reverend Hayap has been working very hard on this, and Reverend Tom has also reiterated this morning. I do hope that these messages are passing through the minds and hearts of Nigerians, and it will form the basis for our discussions throughout the remaining part of 2024, moving into 2025, so that we can see a more united Nigeria, like our Most Reverend Dabo said, where people will wake up with hope, with optimism, where every investor, local, national, or international, will feel that he is investing in people that love peace, people that respect diversity, people that are committed to the development of their societies, irrespective of their religion, ethnicity, place of origin, or any other consideration. But like in the words of Reverend Hayab now, consideration that we are all humans.
So much, Dr. Momole, for your opening comments. You know, it has opened the doors for further conversation, and now we're going to bring in Most Reverend Habila Dabo into the conversation, and he's joining us via Zoom. And you know, Reverend John Joseph Hayab described it aptly when he said that we're one humans, you know, we're under one family. Yes, under God. One human, one family, under God. And Momole is saying that we should open our mind, be awake to our responsibility to make sure this country we call our own, Nigeria, continues to exist. Let's have your take on how we can bring ourselves together, because he quoted things from the Holy Quran and the Bible, and there's so much similarity in both religion, because somebody said we are first humans before we were born with religion. So how can we bring our humanity back into focus in ensuring that this is Nigeria, this is our home? If we allow it to disintegrate, there's nowhere to go to. It seems that we've lost our Zoom connection. You soon be leaving. Yes, I'm not sure if you'll be coming back. Well, I'll now throw the question to Reverend Joseph Hayab, you know, to talk about it. Do we need to awake ourselves? Because we need a sense of awakening for us to promote national unity.
One thing is clear, that we have universal principles and values that cut across tribes, cut across religion, cut across all the divisions we have. We must deliberately use them as a way of unifying ourselves. I think what we do mostly is to focus on the things that divide instead of the things that unite. Look at those universal principles.
Just so sorry to cut you short there. We understand that Bishop Dabo is back and he's leaving imminently. So we'll just engage him and then let him go. So Bishop Dabo, I don't know if you heard the question of Jumai, and if you could just respond before you leave us.
But let me continue from where I stopped. You see, those universal principles.
Yes, I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Your take on that. You got my question?
No, I didn't. Please, may you please repeat your question?
Minds, awakening ourselves to the responsibility of you know, our duty to our country, Nigeria, and then making sure that this is the only place we have, and we cannot contribute to the disintegration of a beautiful country like Nigeria. And how can we bring religion into our perspectives as human beings?
Thank you very much. And I think that is a beautiful question, especially about the religious aspect of it.
We just have to move on.
I am about trying to educate our children. Let me start from the children, but because the way we bring up our children will determine how our future will be. If in our various schools we are able to inculcate in our curriculum the benefits of living together as one family, as one humanity, then the children will grow up to understand that we are all one. Of course, we all know, first of all, we are Nigerians before I am a Christian or a Muslim. All right. So if we are able to make it clear in our curriculum, let our children understand the importance of humanity itself. The children will grow up to see that religion is secondary, but first of all, we are human. So, and we can also develop the idea of religious dialogue. And when I talk of dialogue here, I am talking about sincere dialogue. It is not the type of dialogue that you come and you sit on the table, make beautiful discussions, make beautiful premises, then you go back and tell your followers a different thing altogether. And that is why I am making it to be a sincere differences. I come from a certain cultural background. You come from a certain cultural background. If we are able to harness these different backgrounds, then we crown it up with the idea that we are
Most Reverend Dabo has refused to allow us hear more from him, but we would like to thank him for his contributions this morning. The Most Reverend Habila Dabo, Bishop of Zaria Catholic Diocese, we thank you very much for your contributions on the program this morning.
having me.
Okay, let's get back to the studio where Reverend John Joseph Hayab was already breaking that down a bit. You may now just round off your thoughts on the question.
Yeah, just a quick one. I'm looking at universal principles that binds humanity together. It has no religion, it has no color. It's about humanity, values of love, respect, and tolerance. Let me just stop with those three. You see, you don't need to be a Christian to respect somebody. You don't need to be a Muslim to respect another person. You don't need to be a Christian or to be a white man to tolerate another person, or a black man to tolerate another person. And you don't need all those identities to love, because imbued in us, we grew up to know what love is all about, what respect is all about, what tolerance is all about. So if we can inculcate this, as he rightly said, the bishop said, in our children, helping them to grow into learning what it means to love another person, what it means to respect another person, what it means to tolerate another person. And we grow in places of worship. We help people who come to listen to us preach, understanding that, look, you are not in any way representing Jesus if you disrespect another person, if you fail to love other people, if you fail to tolerate other people. Because even Jesus, during his earthly ministry and in the week he was crucified, taught us that it is tolerance for Jesus to be okay. The army came to the police or the army came to arrest him, but in tolerance, one of his disciples brought out a sword and cut off the ear of one of the soldiers, and he said, no, don't do that. He picked the ear and replaced it back. What is Jesus teaching us? In life we will have challenges. People may even offend us and insult us and cause us pain. How do we react to it? So when we take the teachings of Jesus and apply it to our daily lives, understanding that the other person feels and think also as a human being, it will help us a great deal in building the culture of peace. In schools, we have a lot of curriculums that are good and rich enough to help our children understand respect. But do we really teach them and help them to demonstrate it in practice, or we just have them on paper as issues of class for exams? Because that's the problem we are having. Oh, we want to teach them things they will know to write exams. But I'm not sure that is it. We teach them things they will know and do even when there's no exams, because the best of their exams is how they relate with other children, how they relate with other people. Then we are changing the culture. In 10 years, these children will grow to be adults or grow to be adolescents. In 20 years, they will grow to be adults, and life begin to change. And then in the future, they become leaders of the country, seeing everybody as their own, thinking of another person like them. I've said this and I want to repeat here. Nobody ever goes to hospital and is sick, and the hospital will say, please, you need blood transfusion, but you must bring the blood of a Muslim, or bring the blood of a Christian, or bring the blood of a black man, or bring the blood of a white man. No, it's about blood and blood group. And interestingly, God in his divine way chose to spread these things across every identity. So we must learn to help people know this. So religious leaders now have a role to play. Do we really teach people the truth to practice, or we say what we say is truth for people to just hear and do not practice?
That's quite interesting. We're born without religion, we're born without color. The society decides, who you are. And Most Reverend Habila Dabo talked about the generation, teaching them how it used to be, how good. Now we're living in an era of technology, you know, an era where this generation can get access to almost anything, and they say you can talk from point of knowledge. So how are we inculcating the teachings of Christ to the younger generation, to make them believe in being humble, to make them believe that they owe this country a responsibility? Because we're in a generation where this generation that we call Gen Z or millennials don't really care what happens. How can we bring them back on track?
The easiest way to bring them back on track is for us to be on track as well. Someone has said, your action is speaking so loud I can't hear what you're saying. If you tell them to do some things, certain things, and you are living the opposite, definitely there will be conflict in their minds, and as a result they will rebel against what you're teaching. And so for us in this generation, we must know that we set the pace. We determine what they will get to understand, and they must see the virtues, they must see the values of love, of patience, of tolerance, of humility. They must see these values in us. And as they see these values in us, and of course we are the ones also who will determine what is being presented in the various media, and as we both exemplify and teach, we have opportunities to set the pace for the next generation, the generations coming after us. And so I would like to appeal to us as Nigerians. There's so much in this country. Look at some other countries. You go to the Western world, you'll find out that the Western world, what they have today is as a result of what had been planted. It's as a result of investments. It's as a result of sacrifices. And for us as adults, we must make sacrifices. Sacrifices thinking about what the nation can gain, what can become of Nigeria. These potentials, just imagine if Nigeria fulfills its fullest potentials. Nigeria will be a destination where people will be coming. We have so much to give to the world. We have so much to bless the world with, but I mean, as a result of our ignorance and selfishness, we are not impacting the next generation very well.
All right, thank you very much, Reverend Tom Tapatore, for those comments. Let's travel back now to Kaduna, in our Kaduna studio, where Dr. Salim Momale is seated. Dr. Momale, let me ask this. You know, the message of Easter includes humility. It includes love. It includes peace. It includes servitude. And I ask, how can leaders of all shades in Nigeria imbibe these messages and apply them to our national life?
I think Reverend Tom just alluded to that right now, where he said we have and we must set the right pace, the right stage by ourselves. And it's a very great responsibility on Nigerians and on the current leadership. And when we speak of leadership here, we are not speaking of leadership in the narrowest sense, but in the broadest sense. Leadership at the national level, leadership at the various subnational levels, leadership among our faith-based institutions, leadership among the various intelligentsia, academic institutions, right from the primary schools, those that set our curriculums and train the teachers that train our young people in these schools. Responsibility within the media organizations, responsibility within our traditional institutions. Collectively, if we take this up and find ways and means of working together to create a new national ideal, a new national ambition that we will say collectively we are going to pursue. And like Reverend Hayab says, we give ourselves timelines. We say this is what we must achieve within the next 2 years, within the next 5 years, within the next 10 years. And the Gen Zs, like earlier mentioned, we all know that they listen more to their telephones than they listen to us. They spend more of their time on the modern means of communication via technology. But we have the capacity and we have the ability to define what is there for them to read, for them to see, for them to watch. We have the capacity to define those, to help them, provide them with these necessary ICT tools that will train them to become what we want them to become, what children in other climes are provided with. When we take away all the junk, all those messages that disrupt their thinking, all those messages that make them what we don't want them to become, and we replace that with messages of what we want them to become, messages that will change their mindsets and make them citizens that the entire world will be proud of, not only ourselves. I think we can achieve that. So certainly it's a Herculean task. It's a very big work for us. It requires a lot of cooperation across the various faiths. It requires even us looking back at the style of governance, the priorities we set, how we involve our religious scholars, our religious leaders, and our religious institutions in the affairs of government, in the training of our young people, what we have in our theological colleges, in our madrasas, in our Islamia schools. Collectively, we can work together to provide curriculums, to provide messaging, to provide framework for us to work together and cooperate and set ourselves an ambitious, agenda, just like Reverend Tom says, so that in the next few years, we begin to see our country, we begin to see investments that are durable, that will endure, and that future generations will make reference and say, this is what our parents and our great-grandparents laid for us, and these are the industries, these are the people, these are the citizens that we are today as a result of the sacrifices of our parents and our grandparents.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Momole, I'm going to stay with you briefly, and we're still talking about generational gap when it comes to religion. Growing up, when they say this pastor said that, this malam said that, you take it to heart. And this generation has a mindset of its own, and you find out that they grow up, and all over Twitter you can see, X, you can see on Facebook them asking questions about religion. Are they getting the right answers?
That's exactly what we are saying. Very few of them refer to the books. Very few of them read the theological books in themselves and try even to understand. They want to listen first. They want to watch, they want to do a little bit less of reading. They have their own idols. They have their own type of people they look up to. Why can't we recreate that? So that's the challenge before us. In other societies, which we understand, some of those things we see are not allowed. They are blocked. They are controlled. They are moderated. But here, it seems everybody can prepare and produce anything and release to our young people to watch, to hear. Then at the second level is if we begin to work stronger on the family institutions, because every child lives within a family. If we rebuild the family institutions, we make the family institutions stronger, friendlier, accommodating, caring for our young children, I think they will listen to us better. They will listen to our religious scholars better. If we make our teachers more inspiring, we give them the capacity, we give them the right atmosphere and the right training on how to work with young children, how to work with these generational youths, I think they will perform better. They will stimulate them better. They will draw them closer to themselves and then they will see them as the new idols, rather than watching the movies and the contents of the social media as idols. So let's transform our teachers. Let's transform our parents. Let's give them the capacity. Let's give them the economic power. Let's give them the social knowledge of understanding this through curriculum, through regular engagement, through town hall meetings, through all what we can do, through our religious spaces. Let the government support our religious organizations, our religious groups. This perception that Nigeria is a secular state, and as such, resources cannot be channeled to our faith-based institutions to promote national unity and national development. I think we need to have a rethink on this and design fair and equitable ways of working with our religious institutions, our religious leadership, to rebuild our society and create the young populations that we need to have in this country.
Okay, Dr. Momale, thank you very much for those insights, and we'll come back here to the studio, and let me ask Reverend Hayab, in John chapter 2, verses 13 to 17 and thereabout, we see the account of Jesus using a whip to chase all sorts of traders away from the temple. How do we, or help us situate this in our national life? What does it imply? And what kind of cleansing do we need?
Yeah, thank you very much. What that particular passage, or what I want to share from my understanding of that particular passage, is decisive leadership. A leadership that knows when to talk and when not to talk. A leadership that knows when people have gone beyond boundary and when people are crawling and making effort to grow. A leadership that knows when people are now giving the entire institution a bad picture from when people probably do not know what to do and need to be guided. So Jesus knew exactly the situation, and he showed decisive leadership. Stopped, you have gone beyond excess, don't go further, don't do this, don't turn my house to be the den of robbers. But merriment and other activities continue to take place even during Jesus' earthly ministry. But in that particular situation, he was decisive. I think from home, many parents are not decisive. In our governance, our leaders are not decisive. Even in church. I've been pastor for over 30 years, and sometimes I get worried. You see, let people know when you have gone out of place and when you are in place. When people understand when you will say stop and when you will say, oh, move on, then they understand what you're talking about. But when they don't know when you are red or black or when you are hot or cold, they just think everything moves. So there is lack of decisive leadership in the governance of our country. And unfortunately, it's not just about governance, it's about all of us. In this country, we don't know when to move on and when not to move on. We don't know when to stop and when to continue. We just keep doing things, and nobody. People are being pampered because we don't want to offend them, and there's no leadership that will not offend the followers. It's not possible. It's like a teacher who fails to say, hey, stop here, have not helped. I watched a recent TikTok. You've been talking about social media. I'm going to talk about it briefly. And the lesson simply is that a teacher failed a young child because the teacher asked the young child 2 plus 2, and the child says it's 22. That's 2. And the teacher said, no, 2 plus 2 is 4. And it became an argument, and the teacher was expelled from work or punished or expelled. A panel was set to ask the teacher to explain why did she even offend the child by saying what the child says is wrong. But the teacher insists that what is true, and what is right is right. Now, it ended this way, that when they were to terminate the appointment of the teacher, and they played into the hands of the teacher. And what did they do? They now say, okay, because you have served us for this number of years, we are going to pay you 4,000 for this and 4,000 for that. Then they say, so your total amount is 8 million, so 4 million and 4 million. The teacher said, no, in your calculation, now you will pay me 44.
Yes. 44 million.
44 million, because I simply wanted to teach the child to know what to do right, but I'm being victimized or being questioned for telling the child what is right. So when society tolerate and clap for evil, tolerate and clap for what is wrong, tolerate and clap for indiscipline, tolerate and clap for what does not go right, there's a problem. You've earlier been talking about social media, internet, is it J's generation or whatever? Gen Z. Let me say this very clear. I think the whole problem we have is that we don't understand that. We've forgotten that human beings by nature are inquisitive. So our children take from that nature. They want to know. They want to know. Makes it simple. Instead of shutting down things, you now begin censoring. No, don't do that. If there are bad things in the market, fill the market with good things. And let the people know the difference between the good and the bad. And give them time, they will choose the good and abandon the bad. But you see, we don't give much into putting in that space good things. We allow the bad things to take over the entire space. And whether we like it or not, put all your loads, they will still, in another way, want to know what is contained in that hidden thing. So fill the good place, or the space, with the good information. Some years back, what we normally see in our Nollywood was stories of juju, witchcraft, shrine. Gradually today, they are now changing to tell the stories of love, friendship, marriage. Have we invested enough to make sure that they bring stories that will promote those values I've earlier talked about? Because then children will begin to see those who do this end up this way, those who do that end up this way, those who do the other one end up this way. Then choose. We must fill the space so that people will know the difference between evil and good. And when our children grow to know that, then they will choose what is right. Even at home, as a father, I don't want to load it over my children, but I want to help them to see the difference between good and evil. And as I keep consistently do that, they begin to understand that if I continue this way, I'm going to be destroyed. Don't forget that everybody have the tendency to steal. But why do people not steal? Because when you are caught, it will be a shame on you, shame on your family, it will destroy your future and so many things. So have we really helped them to see that thing? And I believe that when we continue to do this, then we will help our young ones to get out of the fear we are having. But whether we like it or not, they will want to know. They will want to search. They will want to see. There are good stories also out there, but they are not as much as the bad stories. It's like every day of our lives, we allow the few evil people to speak louder than the millions of good people. The good people, nobody seems to be hearing what they are doing. If someone does anything that is good, let me use your station, you may give less attention in helping us to know someone have done something good. But if someone steals something, you tell us 1,000,000 times that there was fire on the mountain somewhere and people ran. So can we also change a way of giving them those options that works, and then it will change the society? I see Nigerians growing. I see the country improving. Every day we have lessons to help our people know that our unity is better, our unity is profitable, our unity brings greater value than our division. Then every day we have opportunity to show people that there are wonderful people in this country, across religion, across tribe, across region, across whatever identity. But people need to be seen and hear more about them every day so that the young ones will know. The last thing is that my daughter one day came from school and I told her I'm expecting a visitor. And she sat with me wanting to receive my visitor. Then I mentioned the name of the visitor. Then she said, but Daddy, someone told me that these people are bad. And I said, who says that? I'm going to ask, that man that is coming may not be of our religion, but he is this, he is that. Since that day, this is almost 8 years now, I completely changed the perception of my daughter. Gradually, she now started bringing people from that other divide to my house because her father have just told her that they are wonderful people. I demonstrated it. That's what you've been talking about. I did not just talk about it.
That's a very strong word, actually. Reverend Tom Takpatore, you know, you've been listening to what they've been saying, and in this era that we're in, the world continues to evolve every day. You know, new things come out, and for older people like us, at times it's not easy to, you know, be able to adapt to it. And but one thing that seems to strike me is the preaching from both divides of prosperity without hard work, prosperity without hard work. And we see people going out to look for prosperity without hard work. We've been seeing the story, the ritualists, killing of people. Yes, you understand. Is that a message we should be issuing out to our followers, you know, telling them that you can get rich We've read James Hadley Chase growing up, and we know that, you know, you never get it right with James Hadley Chase. No matter how much you try to get away with your evil, you're always caught. Yes. Is that the message you should be sending out now? That evil does not pay?
Definitely. No, I'll just share some few things. Number one, the Bible says, without vision, the people perish. If we set the wrong vision, people will go the wrong way. We must set the right vision and let people know, if you get wealth without struggle, if you get wealth without working for it, the wealth will fly away. Definitely. It will fly away either from your hands or from the hands of your children to whom you bequeath your wealth. So we must set the right vision. Let people work hard. There's value in hard work. It's so sweet after a hard day's labor. You've been under the sun, you sit down and you drink cold water. Whether the cold water is from the fridge or from the pot, it's refreshing. And it's better than when you have not done anything. Some other people have been the ones in the farm working. You sit down, lazing, and you are drinking water. That sense of fulfillment is not there. So the fulfillment of hard work, we need to set the right vision for the people. And so the vision, we need to be intentional, purposeful, to let people know that there is so much. I dare say, if I would dupe somebody to get 1 million, most likely I am worth much more than 10 million. So why dupe somebody? Why cause pain for somebody? Of course, remember that there is God. No matter what I have done, I will get the reward. Either I get the reward here or I get the reward in eternity. So I want to help people to see the right picture, to see there is wealth in hard labor, and there are people who work hard and make it well, and get to invest in the right things, not in causing sorrows and pains for other people. If I enrich myself by causing pain and sorrow for other people, I will not be at peace. I will not sleep. And so the right vision and being intentional. And for us as religious leaders and for us as parents, we must do that. And then something else I need to add, when we're talking about Gen Z, it's when you're talking about Gen Z, you're talking about influences and social influencers. We must create content, because social influencers are humans. Yes, they are out to make money. So we must create content to influence the young ones, to influence our children into doing right. If you want a black child and a white child to be friends, you must paint that picture. You must get that into the minds of the people so that they get to know that there is nothing wrong. The blood in the black child and the blood running in the white child is the same thing. And that you can together. When you are working in unity, you are stronger. I mean, than when you're working divided. Like the Bible will say that if one falls down, the other can help that person stand. And that's the power of unity. And this is something we need to preach to, not just to our society, we need to preach to our generation, then preach to the Gen Z.
Right. Reverend Takbatore, thank you very much. Well, I'm sure we will all go out today preaching to Gen Z. But let's take a break now. When we return, we'll head back to Kaduna to see Dr. Salim Omale. Please stay with us. All right, so welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria this Easter Monday. And we've been discussing promoting national unity. Now let's head to Kaduna, where Dr. Salim Omale is seated in our studio. Dr. Omale, you know, the story of Easter, I missed out one when I was talking with you earlier. Jesus paid the supreme price. And if we have to apply this to our national life, what sacrifices are there to be made by our leaders on one hand, and then by the people on the other hand, to ensure that we can, you know, birth or grow or develop the nation of our dreams?
Thank you so much on bringing in the issue of sacrifices. It's really a very big debatable issue in the country. And I must say that when you speak to some Nigerians and you speak about sacrifices, they begin to ask the question, who is to sacrifice? Is it the followership or is it the leadership? On whose responsibility? Who should take the greater part of responsibility for these sacrifices? And I think this is very important. Listening to the scholars that have been contributing, we all recognize that we have a lot and a lot to do as a country to build the nation that we all want. And to do that, we have to focus on the bigger pictures, on the bigger areas, on setting the vision, bringing out the right messages, working on them, ensuring equity, transparency, and high level of accountability. So in terms of sacrifice that we need to do, I think the highest responsibility lies with the leadership. The leadership have a responsibility. Like Reverend Hayab said, a decisive leadership will make much difference. A leadership that is disciplined first of all on itself, meaning that every action of the leader is guided by accountability, transparency, and practical demonstration, as many of them have made reference to in their discussions. In the absence of this, you may hardly get that reciprocal sacrifice from the larger followership and the citizenry. So I must say that the Nigerian leadership, the political leadership at the highest levels, both at the national and at the subnational levels, at the executive and the legislative arms, as well as the public service, including both the civil service as well as the other public sector institutions, must demonstrate the highest level of accountability, transparency, and honesty for Nigerians. And they must work together and engage the relevant stakeholders. And in this case, important are our religious institutions, both of the Islamic and the Christian faith, our intelligence and intelligentsia drawn from all the various sections of the country, our captains of industry and high-level businesses. They must all come together and chart a common agreement that they will all sacrifice by stopping all the small and big negative things that everyone does, and then collectively working for this country. I think if we get that, then there is a strong buy-in of the media and the media practitioners across the country. I think we have gotten the first major achievement that we need to do to get this country transformed and moving in the right direction. For the rest of us, the citizens, the most important thing is the types of message, the types of engagements, and the awareness creation. And here, we can assign responsibilities, we can assign roles, and we can devote resources which will be transparently applied to ensure that all the other followers within the country and those in the diaspora key into this common vision of sacrifice. So once we do this, I think we will take our country back to the path for which we all look up to it at the point of independence and the strides that were met in the early days of post-independence Nigeria. Like the other discussant said, there are a lot of opportunities in this country. There is a lot of hope. There is a lot of optimism. We have the population. We have the intellectual resources. And we have the natural resources. If we mobilize all of this together under a dynamic, transparent, and an accountable leadership at the national, state, local governments, and within the various public, private sector institutions and our civil society groups will see a formidable change, and we'll all be happy in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years, and ultimately in the next 10 years, Nigeria will be one of the greatest countries that everybody will aspire to see all over the world.
Thank you so much, Dr. Momole. Let's come back here to the studio. Reverend Hayab, the cardinal message of all faiths, not just Christianity or Islam, all faiths is peace and loving thy neighbor as yourself. And we've seen the leaders of all religions, sacrificing so much. We've had stories of Jesus Christ going hungry, and making sure that people eat. We've seen the stories of Prophet Muhammad. When he would be hungry, he would tie stones on his stomach and stand and pray. We're in an era, we're in a time of prayers now. The Christians just finished the Lent. The Muslims, we are still fasting. And it's all about praying to God, to ask for peace for this country, to ask for peace for the world, because if we have peace here and the world is in turmoil, we are not at peace. How can we pass this message of loving thy neighbor as yourself? That is the love of man and the love of humanity, and ensuring that your neighbor doesn't go to bed hungry.
Thank you very much, because the last question ends with hunger.
Yes.
And there's so much hunger in the land.
Yes.
That at any slightest provocation, you see people reacting. They are not reacting because what you say is wrong. They are reacting because their stomach is telling them that though the story or the message being delivered is good, but the situation you are facing is not good enough to absorb the message. So the place of sacrifice, we are all expected to make sacrifice for the common good of our children, humanity. As parents, we make sacrifice for our children. There are things we want to, but we're not going to do it because we want our children to go to school, we want to pay their school fees, we want to ensure there's light in the house, we want to ensure there's food in the table. So that's the kind of sacrifice. So when we build that spirit, that attitude, that culture of making sacrifice, then we extend it beyond our sacrifice for our family to sacrifice for the community, sacrifice for the larger state, for the larger country. And most time when we talk about sacrifice, we make illustration with difficult things that people don't even see it in their daily lives. Permit me to use this example that you are driving on the way or you're walking on the road and you see something that could cause accident, something that could cause other people's their life. Nobody wants to stop to correct it or to pick it away. It's not my role. So when we say leaders must make sacrifice, when you've not learned to make sacrifice as you are growing to become a leader, when you become a leader, you will not be able to make any sacrifice. So the spirit of sacrifice begins with the common man, with everybody, and understanding that this country belongs to us. But this is where we get it wrong. I'm sorry that I use this word, we get it wrong. I think most of us and most of those who lead us assume that governance is for them and we are not part of government. No. Government is for all of us. The fact of it is that we own government. I seated here and all of you, including other Nigerians, we own Aso Villa. We just feel, okay, for now, the right person we should ask him to stand for us in Aso Villa is President Tinubu. But we own it. Similarly, if I go back to Kaduna, we own Sakashim Ibrahim House. But we just decide that the right person, or the majority of us decide that the right person we should allow him be governor now is Obasani. But we own the government house. And unless people see this as their own, in peace building or in development community, we used to talk about, let people take ownership of whatever you are doing, the process, the activity, whatever. If people don't take ownership of the country, they will not be patriotic, they will not make sacrifice. But when they take ownership and see it as their own, so if this country gets bad, Hayab, you are bad. If this country do not make progress, Hayab, you are not making progress. Now it is about me. So now me, my children, my grandchildren, and everybody surrounding me, I have to be careful to make this country work. So I want to appeal to Nigerians that even though our scripture teaches love, but you see, listen to how the Bible put it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And how does it mean? Because you love yourself, you do bath. Because you love yourself, you wear good clothes. Because you love yourself, you eat food. Because you love yourself, you won't put your hand on fire. Okay, if you're going to translate that love to your neighbor, you won't allow your neighbor to be in danger. You won't allow your neighbor to sleep without food. You won't allow your neighbor to go into pains or whatever will cause him sorrow. So we must deliberately help people to understand these teachings, that it begins with you. Then you can translate it. You don't know love about yourself. How can you love the country? How can you love the people? And then when you become a governor or a president, it will be worse because you never understand it in the first place. That's why there you will just be selfish. Unfortunately, we will cry. So as a nation, we need to wake up and begin it from the grassroots or from ourselves. Then we can grow. When you become a president tomorrow, because you love yourself, you will want the best for the country.
All right. Reverend John Joseph Hayab, thank you very much for those inspiring messages. But let's also talk about hope, Reverend Tom Tapatore. There is the message of hope. Nigeria is plagued by a plethora of challenges. We talk security, well, now we are talking hunger and the likes of them. Name it and name it, economic issues. Does the message of Easter mean that we can rise above all of these challenges? What does it tell us particularly?
Now, Easter is about life, dying, and resurrecting. Easter is about the author of victory being defeated and yet rising up again in victory. So for us, it's a message that no matter how bad things are, I mean, if you say something is dead, it means that thing is useless. Now, Christ died, and on the third day, he rose again. And that gives us hope that no matter how useless something is, that something is finished and whatever, there is still hope. There is still life that can come out of a lifeless situation, out of a hopeless situation. And for us as a nation, yes, the problems are much, but there is hope. And with the help of God, and like our various speakers have said this morning, with all of us, both leadership and the followership, taking up the collective responsibilities and working, and you putting your best, you doing your bit. I believe that Nigeria is a great nation and can be a great nation, and great things can happen as a result. And if we all work together, it will take us less time than if we all pursue our individual selfish ambitions.
Okay, let's go back to our time is beginning to round up so that we can be able to get more perspective into our conversation. Dr. Momole, you are the Vice Chairman, Kaduna State Peace Commission, and I'm sure you must have been engaged in a lot of dialogue between ethnic groups, religious groups, and all that. Now, what message do we need to give out there on the hope? We are in an era of renewed hope, actually, and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is saying, be patient, things are going to be better. But a lot of Nigerians are impatient, and we know how the situation is with the hydra-headed security challenges we have in the country. So what message do we need to send to Nigerians that we need to believe that there is a God up there who controls everything and things will get better for this country?
Thank you very much. We are all aware of the current challenges that is facing the country at different levels. The intensity varies from one part of the country to another. Here in Kaduna State, we are all familiar with some of the recent happenings. Many communities have been affected, many communities have been devastated in different parts of the state. However, we have seen high level of resilience, great level of understanding of the issues and challenges, and very strong level of cooperation from the citizens of Kaduna State, the leadership of the communities at various levels. And we have seen a lot of contributions and support both within and outside the state. And we must acknowledge that the media have also been highly supportive. They have not been promoting negative stereotypes and negative messaging. But collectively, we have been working together to see how we can address this. The governor of the state, Malam Obasani, have been moving around some of these areas, reassuring people, reassuring citizens, giving them confidence and assuring them of government's commitment. The same thing, the leadership at the national level have been highly supportive of Kaduna State and many other states in the country. We have seen how Mr. President personally attended, the funeral of our slain security operatives that were affected in some parts of the country. I think this is quite reassuring and strengthening the resolve of the people to continue to work together. So yes, of course, the challenges are there, the issues are there, but we are strongly appealing to the people within Kaduna State and beyond to work together. And I think our cooperation and the level of understanding that we exhibit amongst ourselves, not allowing division among our communities, will strengthen peace and stability within our areas. We are aware that in the early stages of some of these violent crimes that we are seeing, there are areas where division between communities escalated some of this violence. We are aware again there are many communities where there were great threats, but unity and cooperation among the adherents of the different religious and ethnic groups within those areas prevented the escalation of the insecurity in those areas. So we have seen where division has aided the growth of criminality, many of these violent crimes, and we have seen areas where unity and cooperation has helped to moderate, to cushion, and even to eliminate some of these threats in some parts of the state and in other parts of the country. So it is for this reason that we'll continue to work with our communities, we'll continue to work with civil society groups, we'll continue to work with traditional and religious leaders, we'll continue to work with all community-based organizations to see how best can we secure our communities, how can we support development, particularly rural production of crops and livestock, and other social economic activities that our citizens are pursuing.
Dr. Momole, we're actually running out of time. We have to come back to the studio to get your final thoughts. Most Reverend John Joseph
Hayab. I'd like to ask Reverend Hayab, of course, in your concluding remarks, what's the role? What should be the role of religious leaders in guiding the government when it
there's understanding. So keep that spirit, and all other governors do that, because you need people to succeed.
Indeed, Reverend Tom Tapatore, let's get your final thoughts in a moment.
I believe very strongly that Nigeria has great potentials. We have what it takes, and all it needs is for us to sacrifice, have the right vision for the future of the country. Think, what can Nigeria be in the next 100 years? How can I invest in sacrifices? How can I invest in the well-being of the nation as a whole? Not looking at my own selfish interest, not considering my religious or whatever, or my ethnic group, but just working for the good of the nation.
Okay, Reverend Tom Tapatore, Senior Pastor, First Baptist Church, Area 11, Garki. Thank you so much. As usual, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. And Reverend John Joseph Hayab, Country Director, Global Peace Foundation, Nigeria. Your words impacted positively, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians will learn from your insight. And Dr. Salim Omole, Vice Chairman, Kaduna State Peace Commission, as always, a pleasure to have you on the program. And Most Reverend Habile Dabo, who has left us since, Bishop of Zaria Catholic Diocese, it's been a pleasure having you. And that's Good Morning Nigeria. This Easter Monday. We hope you enjoyed it. Join us again for another insightful edition tomorrow.
All right, and I am Victor Azu. I join Jumai in bidding you a very wonderful holidays today. Join us again.